All right, welcome everybody. Good to have you here. My name is Michael McAvoy, and many of you know that I've been promoting the Human Longevity Project as of recently. And this is really an amazing series, a documentary series that was done by Jason Prall and others, John Dahlgren and Mike Roseline. And it really is just an incredible series of episodes that really kind of tells a tale about human longevity in the 21st century. And I'm very, very excited to have Jason Prall on this call. And if you give us a second, we'll be here, have him here in a sec. But the Human Longevity Project, I was fortunate enough to be interviewed in this. And it's one of the most riveting docu-series that I've ever seen. And this series has the potential to change the paradigm of health and disease in the 21st century. It truly does. I believe that because I've seen its benefits. I've seen how hey, Jason.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good, man. It's been a rough technological day for me, so I'm just glad we got this to work.
I know. You never know what to expect with these kinds of things, but I think we're here. I think we're live, and I think we're doing it. And I want to first of all thank you. Thank you for a number of things. First of all, thank you for doing this call. I can only imagine how incredibly busy you are.
This is the fun stuff. Like I actually really enjoyed chatting with really smart people like yourself, and just letting go of all the kind of the busyness that often entails projects like this. And you know this with the programs that you developed. It's like there's so much work that goes into the development of that stuff that it's like once that gets done, like this is the fun stuff.
Yeah, no, I get it, and I also want to thank you for making this series. I mean, this has been. For me, I've been involved in a lot of different kinds of things and projects, and this, to me, is one of the most special, unique, and really, really powerful films that I've ever seen, period. I mean, not only about health and disease, but just one of the greatest documentary films I've ever seen. It's done so well. I mean, you should be incredibly proud of what you've done here. It's absolutely unbelievable.
Let me tell you this, when I saw your comment come through, and it wasn't even to me specifically, it was just like, wow, this was really well done. I could tell it was genuine coming from you, and honestly, it was like, to hear you say that, I knew we did a good job, because honestly, you've been a mentor for me. I mean, understanding a lot of the metabolic processes of cellular function, and now, of course, outside the cell, and various things that are happening intracellularly, and there's so many things. And so, when you can bring it together in a way that makes sense and is hopefully entertaining and that kind of thing, and somebody like you responds positively, it's like it means a lot. So I thank you for your comments and your endorsement of it, because these topics are hard to cover. It's so complex what we're trying to get to.
And so for the people that are watching that have not seen or heard of the Human Longevity Project, we're going to post a link in the comments in a few minutes. But what you really need to know and understand is that, first of all, Jason, I have an enormous amount of respect for you. The type of work and the type of research and the type of stuff that you get into, we share a lot of similarities in that regard. I mean, we're doing a lot of the same kind of research. We're looking at a lot of the same kind of stuff. But when you watch the Human Longevity Project, you realize that you've done something that I've never seen done before. I would call this a modern day Weston Price, modern day anthropological investigation. But you take it one step further, because you're actually not only investigating health and longevity and centenarian groups, but you're also putting it under the scientific lens. And you did an amazing job of putting together all of these different scientists and researchers and epigeneticists. And the way that it was all edited together, the post-editing was so incredibly seamless, how you were able to just captivate the audience from one interview and one scene to the next. just the whole thing is just so incredibly well done. I cannot even begin to tell you how excited I am that this film exists.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's certainly a difficult thing to do. Thankfully, having guys like John Dahlgren, who is, a filmmaker and a photographer, so he can see things and tell stories in a really, really beautiful way. And then we have our editor, who is, I mean, I don't know how the heck we got lucky to have somebody like him, because he's worked on like legit projects, like real, filmmaking and Hollywood style projects. And so there's skill in making this stuff come to life, and when you watch something like a well done film, especially a documentary, it all kind of seems to flow and make sense. Like, oh yeah, that's how it's supposed to be. But when you're in the editing room and you're looking at hundreds of hours of footage, and you have sort of a template in your mind and you're trying to get it all, because it's not like, when we have a 12-second clip of you and then it flows into something else, from Karan Krishnan, like we didn't plan that, like you have to find how these things splice together. But, it does end up kind of finally working itself out. And I think what's cool is that, right, I think really one of the things that we wanted to do with this film was to take the Weston Price approach and go look at other societies. And here's the thing, even when Weston Price was looking at things, it was pre-modern technology. It was pre kind of chemicals almost, right?
Yes.
So it's like
right.
in the 30s and 40s, like we weren't here. And so this is, I think we're at this really unique time period where you and I live in a toxic and yet exciting and yet full of potential type of world with the technology and all these things. But yet there's still societies that exist even today that have people that grew up most of their life without electricity, most of their life without, and grandmothers and aunts and this type of thing. So we can still capture that. And I think when we look at health, I think this is one of the things that we must take into consideration, is that there's a historical context that we have to view this anthropological framework through, because it's not the same. They didn't grow up the same. So because of that, we can't go back to that. Like we can't go back to 1942, a Greek island living.
Right.
Totally
One of the things that I think is amazing is that I think in 20 years from now, we're going to look back at this film and we're going to be able to understand so much of what it's been like to live in this era. I mean, truthfully, we're living in an era of great expansion in many ways, great scientific expansion, but as you mentioned, the level of toxicity, the level of different types of, exogenous exposures that we're all being subjected to is having a significant role. And I think that one of the things that this film is serving as is a template for understanding where we're going in the future of this planet and the health of this planet. And because this film has been made, and the way that it was done, the people that were interviewed, the whole thing, to me, serves as a historical footmark, if you will, a footprint of what life was like in 2018 at kind of the early onset of this technological society. And really, it kind of is the early onset. We're only, 20 years into this thing in one sense. But, I think that we're going to look back at this and really have a better understanding of where things were. And, I'm very hopeful and optimistic that the health on this planet is going to improve. And I think in many ways it will. But I also think that we've got a long way to go in order to really understand what's going on and how people are going to be able to adapt. And one of the great concepts that I loved in the film was the concept of hormesis.
Yeah.
I think of it as biological adaptation to stressors. And to me, that's got to be one of the most central things going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I had to go let the dog out. Yeah, I think you're correct. And I think this is where we're at right now, is we have to understand this idea of stress and where we go with this, because I think you're right. And I kind of see it the same way, that we're at this weird nexus of the past meets the future and where we want to go, and we have to decide. And I think what we were trying to do with this film, and hopefully this becomes sort of a snapshot, if you will, of this period of time, where we have to understand how to approach the future, and it's got to be based on an understanding, and this understanding of hormetic stress, of selective stressors, of relaxing and calming things down, and sort of this dynamic balance that exists at the macro level, but also at the micro level, right? We see this with inflammation, right? We can talk about cellular inflammation and, inflammation being turned on and being really effective tool, but if it gets stuck on, not a good thing. We're seeing the same things on just different levels, right? And so I think the skill going forward is going to be, how do we relax and yet turn things on and turn things off and play this dynamic balance? Because let's face it, we're not in a stressful life and death environment anymore. Most of us are very comfortable. We don't fear death every day, nor do we have to worry about long-term survival. And I was actually thinking about this the other day. It's really interesting if you think about even an agrarian society, but more of a natural living society, maybe let's say 200 years ago, or in remote parts of the world today. Nature operates slowly, right? So it's really fascinating that, like, if you think about the way nature operates, the crops growing, the seasons changing, even the daily cycle, it's sort of a relatively slow process. And because of that, there is no immediate dangers. But if you think about our lives right now, oh my God, I get to this email. If I don't get to this email now, like, life's going to end. I got to go do this. I'm late for this. We're in this literally like life or death situation every day. We just don't recognize it. So it's a really fascinating thing. Our world is so fast, and our triggers are so fast, where in the natural world, things are kind of slow. And
that's a great point. And the way that these people are living in these centenarian zones is very much in tune with that slow pace of how nature really is.
Absolutely. And their stressors were more long-term. So it's like, okay, we need to make sure that we have enough food. It was a terribly hot season, this summer. Foods weren't growing as well. How are we going to go? We need to go hunt. So, but you don't die in one day if you don't have food, right? You can go 2, 3, 4 days, no problem. You can go with very little food. In the film, you'll see that one of the guys from Greece, he was 40-something pounds at the age of 14. And it's because there was just a massive lack of food at a certain period of time, where I think there was some civil war going on. And there was the armistice, and there was kind of this, they were divvying out little bits of bread, like, a couple grams of bread every day to people. So, that, and the body was able to deal with it, And so my point is that everything moved slower, that the stressors were a slow stress, and you could deal with them. Right now, we have such an immediacy with our days that we need to learn how to get under control. And no amount of technology will help us do that if we don't start to recognize how to do that and be in our bodies today. So, one of the amazing things I like about your work is that you understand, and you dig into the cellular stuff, but you understand the macro aspect, where meditation fits into the micro aspects of the cell, right? And so these are the tools that I think we're going to have to continue to rely upon: how to sleep better, how to meditate, how to connect better, right? Because the art of connecting with another human today is difficult. 100 years ago,
it's extremely difficult. And the irony is that even though we're so connected through the World Wide Web and everything that it's done, in many ways we're isolated from the world, and we're isolated from nature, which is ironic, but that's the way that it seems to be.
Yeah, well, we don't feel connected to our families even, right? I mean, this is a really bizarre thing that we see in the West, which is that we often don't like our parents. We don't really want to hang out with our siblings. Living with your parents when you're past the age of 18 is kind of frowned upon. And yet you look at other societies, and grandma and uncles, and they're all a part of the same household and same family. They're working together, and it's so, and that does exist in even in just modern Europe, like in Italy and in France, and I mean, this is Bulgaria. I mean, this is like, it's in most of the world. It's not just in these remote parts of the world, but this foundational thing that we're missing, we have to, if we don't reintegrate it, I don't think that's the end of the world, but I do think we need to understand it and find ways to modify our daily living and our connections and our tribes and these type of things to facilitate the thing that we're lacking from that fundamental component that maybe family provides, or even church provides, or something that is communal and bigger than ourselves, that we can act altruistically, that we can feel like we matter to other people. These type of things matter. And if we don't integrate those back into our lives, technology and the future of of the Internet of Things is not going to matter. It's not going to save us.
One of the things that's great about the film is that you have this ability to rationalize in a scientifically validated way a lot of these observations that we were making in these blue zones that you're visiting. So like the epigenetic effects of communal experiences, the epigenetic effects of eating together, the epigenetic effects of living in community and living with the rhythms of nature. There is a scientifically validated, explainable, if you will, way to understand these things.
Yeah, honestly, and that was the thing. It was part of the reason why we kind of wanted to go to some of these regions around the world and tag on to sort of the blue zone idea, was because I think, you know, that stuff's been studied for 40, 50 years or whatever it is, or it certainly elaborated in the last 20 or 30. And yet it was done so by people that weren't scientists, right? They didn't really understand epigenetics. They didn't understand genomics or, you know, metabolomics or these type of things. And so I thought, well, you know, I'm no expert, but I can certainly understand it to some degree, and it makes sense to me. So let's find out how we can get some of these experts in those areas and see if we can't put some meat behind it, right? Because it's like, you know, even the blue zone work, they left out things like circadian biology, right? Because they didn't understand it, and they don't understand that our future's changing and we are inside, and so that's going to change. And so I thought, you know, why don't we explore these ideas that are so simple and provide something of weight behind them so that we can get people to recognize the importance of it. Because if you tell somebody, go outside in the morning for 20 minutes to get sun in your eyes, they'll look at you and say, okay, but I have an autoimmune condition. Like, that's not going to help me. I need to find out how to resolve my immune system challenges. But then you go, well, wait, no. That actually is intimately various hormone production, let alone, you know, immune system regulation and you know, all these cycles, right? So if we want to tell people that simple solutions are an answer to their complex problems, then we have to give them something of meat, or something of value, something to sort of hold on to recognize how powerful these things are. And to me, that was what was missing from a lot of the longevity and blue zone work that's been done before, is that they don't explain why purpose would extend longevity. You know, how does purpose affect mitochondrial function, for crying out loud? You know, and that's a hard thing to explain. And I'm not suggesting that even we do it is full justice, but to understand the mechanisms between the autonomic nervous system, you know, and these type of things that filter down to the cellular level, I think that's an important connection to make, at least broadly, so that we can understand. Okay, yeah, you know, I love art. You know, art can extend my life and bring me happiness and health at the biological, physical level. Like, holy smokes, painting a picture can improve my health. There's science behind that, right? So to me, that's cool, and it's fun, and it gives you power. You know, you and I are both in the clinical world, and wouldn't it be great if the clinicians aren't needed as much, you know? And not only that, even when clinicians,
you refer them out to an art therapist.
Exactly.
There you go.
I would be an art therapist. I would move more into art therapy at that point, you know. But I think it also makes our job easier if we're working with people and they understand that they have so much power. Because if you're working with somebody and they don't recognize how much power they hold, how that health is within them already, boy, it's hard to be a clinician and make a difference, you know? So we need to work together, both as clinicians and as quote unquote patients, to heal us all. You know, I think we need to come together. There is no master student. It's really a partnership, I think. And if we can get back to that, everybody wins.
I mean, this crosstalk between not only biological systems, but it seems like there's this dynamism between all of these different things, internal and external, microenvironment, macroenvironment, our living environment, our communal environment, our mitochondria, and our nuclear genome. All of these symbiotic relationships. I mean, let's face it, it seems like all life is based on symbiosis. All life is based on this merger of things, of people, of stuff, of emotions, of concepts, of ideas, of everything. It's all about this symbiotic relationship of living in harmony with other things, despite our disagreements, despite our arguments, despite our adversities. We still are able to live somehow in the chaos is able to coexist.
Absolutely. And to me,
I see that happening at a biological level. And I see that happening in many of the ways that the film describes the way that things are working.
Yeah, this is the beautiful part. I mean, I think in this age of isolationism, this age of competition, it's sort of bred within our capitalist society, right? This idea that we need to sort of climb above the other, and the competition has a role, right? Even in biology. But more than that, I think cooperation and symbiosis and this dynamic interplay between systems is really where that's where the magic happens. That's where the chaos becomes, harmony. And I see that as well. And I think the cool thing, that I like to think about is sort of this intersection between, things like Buddhism and the Christian faiths and even the naturalists and all this stuff. And we can look at that and go, if we just step out of ourselves a little bit and think about others, think about the environment and take care of the environment. And if we, because the environment mirrors back to us, so as soon as we start to harm the environment, it's going to harm us right back, because that's the way life is. As soon as we harm our inner ecosystem, which is our microbiota and our mitochondria, which have their own genetic material, we harm them, we get harmed. So how about we take care of our environment? The environment will take care of us in turn, because it mirrors, and we take care of our internal environment, and it will take care of us. And so if we get out of this egocentric focus and instead focus on others, I think everybody wins. And research has shown even things like if I meditate on healing you, if you need some healing work done, and I can meditate and focus my intention and energy on you in a real way, you heal. It actually improves healing for you, but I actually get more of the healing benefit than you do. And so I love this stuff, right? It's like, as long as I can focus on you, I get the benefits. And so there's this weird, like, selfish but selfless aspect to things. And there's so many people that talk about this, this idea of giving and re-giving, that life doesn't ever take. It just gives and re-gives. And I thought, that's really cool. And I think there's so many philosophies and religions and spiritual aspects that we can all tie into this that's intimately married to the science. And if we just allow that to sort of blossom and allow these messages to come through and really look at life and organisms and nature and ourselves in a more open framework, as opposed to this dogmatic, scientific, research-driven thing, I think we start to get more answers. I think things become clear. I think things become fun. I think we just relax a little bit, and allow this stuff to unfold.
It's so easy to get lost in the milieu of scientific research and scientific validation and scientific this and scientific that. And I mean, while that's all fun and games, at the end of the day, the only thing that really matters is, from a clinical perspective, is getting results. Yeah. Whatever works and whatever makes a person happier and healthier.
Absolutely. Like placebo effects, right? Like, we know that this placebo works, which is why we have to do double-blind clinical trials so that we can avoid this aspect of the placebo. And yet we look at the placebo and go, oh, that's garbage, and like, we don't care. And it's like that, guys, like, maybe that's the most important aspect of anything, is the placebo effect, right? Because it's our mind, it's our subconscious and our conscious mind working together with our body and the energy systems that flow between. And it's like, that's the cool stuff. And I think when practitioners open up to that and really like leverage that point, this is where functional testing can come into play. Even we were talking, we kind of had a little Facebook thread that, you and I were commenting on about gut testing, right? And stool testing and the benefits and maybe the limitations of that stuff. But at the end of the day, even something that's maybe not perfect can be used to incite a little bit of a placebo effect, of an understanding of, if you're checking markers, it's like, okay, I can see that now. Now I want to make improvements on it because I can see it. So there's so many ways we can leverage this, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of components. If we can bring them all together, I think that's where the healing really happens.
Well, it's very beautiful. I mean, the way that these concepts are conveyed, the way that you've brought these different people together, again, it's a symbiosis. It's this merger of understanding, this native wisdom, this inherited native wisdom that's just being passed on consciously and unconsciously with this combined symbiosis of understanding how to rationalize it. It's the left brain and the right brain literally talking together in a film. I mean, it's really an incredible thing that you've done. I'm very proud and honored to be a part of it, and for you to have done it, and for John and Michael to be a part of it. This has just been an incredible process. I highly recommend everybody that's watching this to view the Human Longevity Project. Sign up for it. It's going to blow your mind. It's going to blow your mind no matter what kind of a mind you have, whether you have a scientific mind or a non-scientific mind, or you just want to understand how to live happier and healthier, how to understand. Some of the science is just incredible. Some of the things, I mean, you know, when I was interviewed in this film, there were so many really intense and hard questions that you I was like, man, this guy is not holding back any punches. He's wanting me to go as far into this as I can.
I love it too, and you just rolled right with it like it was no big deal. I'm like, okay, explain the cell danger response, and this is like new research, and you're like, okay, well, here we go, and you just laid into it, and it came together beautifully. And I mean, this is the stuff. It's like, I think the new research is really cool when you can tie it back to the big picture, right? And this is where, as a practitioner, you understand this stuff and don't get lost in the detail, because the detail will just completely suck you in and you will get more and more confused, right? So it's this big picture stuff. And I agree. I think that the hope that I think that I have for the film is that if you're a science geek and you love the details of the science, that we have enough of that to satisfy you and it's intense enough. And also you can understand the big picture of why the science matters. And then if you're somebody who doesn't really dig all the science and doesn't care about how it all works, hopefully all of the rest of it is good enough to get you to understand the power of it. And then even if the science is going over your head, you're like, okay, well, there's some people talking about this. I don't know what the heck they're saying, but definitely sounds like it's really smart and it's tied in. You know, maybe it's more, maybe I should do this more, right? And so that was kind of the goal. And I'm sure there's people that go back and forth in between, but it's the philosophy, it's the science, it's the practical aspects, it's the lifestyle, it's the connection. You know, I think we tried to incorporate as much of it as we could in a 9 episode series. There's so much more that I wish we could have included, and that's the cool part, honestly. And if this is the reason, I would say there's a massive incentive to sign up. And if it resonates with you, you know, we have packages that are available afterwards, so you can own this stuff. The cool thing is you get the full interviews, right? That's like to me, that's like the gold, is that we have 94 insanely good, smart, wise experts that range all over the place, you know, from the spiritual side to the emotional side to the microbiota and the mitochondria, the whole range. And you get their full interviews. And so there's so much stuff that we couldn't include in the film. And that's where like all the gold is in my mind. The film is just sort of is connecting the dots, right? That's really what the film is designed to do, is connect the dots.
And I just want to reiterate everything that Jason said. It's just so satisfying of a film for whoever's watching it. I mean, for somebody like me who's an information and science junkie, you know, constantly reading papers, I am just like floored by the content that you've put together. You know, you've set me spinning on research projects.
Good.
The interviews you've done.
Good. You're smarter than me.
You're taking up too much of my time.
Good.
You're leading me down rabbit holes that I never knew existed.
I love it. Perfect. Then you can go and understand it, and then we can interview you and you can explain it to me, because that's sort of your gift, is to be able to sort of parse this stuff out, because it's like, I mean, it gets intense. And yeah, and then to me, that's the gift, right? The gift is being able to go in there and understand this stuff and teach it, because teaching this complex stuff is really hard. And like I said, you've been a mentor to me in that regard for a while now. So you've shortcut my life. I make your life harder. You just shortcut mine. This is a good relationship. I like it.
It's a symbiosis. The perfect merger.
Exactly.
So really, I mean, I truly believe that in the future, we're going to look back at this film and really be amazed at the way that this was all done. The many of the key points and the key concepts that were taken at this particular moment in history. And from a historical context, I truly believe that this film is going to leave a mark, and it's going to represent something very significant to the future of this planet. And not only from a change perspective, just understanding how and where we were at this moment in time and this level of where our understanding was. And I think so many of these concepts that you're tying together, especially tying together the microcosm with the macrocosm, with that is going to be such a critical point of departure going forward. I think we're going to look back at this film and we're going to say this is a really significant contribution. I really believe that. So
Well,
thank you very much for doing that.
I appreciate the kind words, and I'm telling you right now that you're giving hope to the editors and the people that have been working on this tirelessly, honestly, for the last 2 or 3 months. I mean, 9 episodes of a film is like a 3-year project, and just the editing, and these guys have gotten it done in like 2 months. So they've been working their tail off. So just to hear that, I think will give them a lot of joy, because it's a lot of work, and I hope that people. I mean, at the end of the day, if it impacts a few people, like in a profound way, it's worth it. So, you know, and it's going to be cool to see this thing, to mark this point in history. I think that is kind of a part of any of this type of stuff. It's like looking back at old photos, right? It's like, whoa, that's where we were, right? So, and I think you're right. It's a very fascinating time. So, I'm really curious to see how it all plays out, and hopefully this message will reach as many people as possible. And I appreciate you kind of giving us the platform to discuss it and share the message, because that's kind of what it's all about. You know, we need to make a change. It's kind of time. We've been screwing around for long enough, and I think we either have to face the music in a really painful way, or we have to kind of own up and make some tough decisions, and we can create a really beautiful, you know, future going forward. It may not be as easy as we'd like, but I think we're there. I think we're at that critical time, and I think we all kind of chose this for a reason, and here we are, and it's time to create some magic going forward, because there's seriously an opportunity to do so, and it's going to be a struggle, but I think it's going to be fun. We're starting to see, I mean, do you remember 15, 20 years ago what the U.S. looked like in terms of health and organic food? And it was a nightmare, you know, and here we are. So
right. Here we are, right, 20 years
later. It's cool. Yeah, so we're moving forward.
I appreciate the positive attitude. I tend to be somewhat of a pessimist sometimes.
Me too.
You know, after having, I mean, if you look at things, I mean, there's different ways of looking at things, obviously. I tend to be realistic, but also kind of veering on the side of pessimism. But you bringing into this a very optimistic yet realistic view, which I think is very important for people to understand, because I think people in this country especially are you know, it's easy to get scared from a lot of different things that are going on. You know?
Yeah.
But you know, there's a lot to look forward to. There's a lot of good things to look forward to. There's a lot of new ideas. One of the greatest things about this film is that it spawns so many new ideas. It spawns so many new ideas about what to do and how to really make a positive impact in personal lives as well as the lives of this planet.
Yeah,
so few films do that. You know, some films are, you know, leave you with kind of this air of sadness
what now?
or sorrow or hyper, you know, elation, but it does such a good job of being so well-rounded to making you appreciate the whole picture.
That's awesome. I appreciate it. I mean, and that's the goal, right? I mean, I think you're right. If a film or a book or anything just leaves you with this dismal feeling or this air of kind of wispy hope without any real kind of you know, thing behind it, I think then doesn't really do much, right? So at the end of the day, I think it's practical. I think it's easy. I don't think that we have to do much. In fact, I think we probably have to do less. Less is more in a lot of ways, right? Eat less. Eat more real things. Don't use as many. You don't. I mean, we talked about this previously, where you've gone on raw food diets, like literally raw meat, and like so. Just think about that, right? I mean, if somebody gets up in the morning and eats like a cucumber, a few carrots, maybe an apple. I mean, no cooking required, no hardly anything, barely need a refrigerator. So I just simplify, right? So if we just take a step back, simplify everything, bring things back towards the center, towards us, and not look outside of ourselves so much, I think it's not going to be so hard. And I think we just have to kind of relax a little bit, because we're all so uptight, myself included. I find myself getting so wrapped up and uptight and emotional, and it's like, geez, just chill out. You know, it's ridiculous.
It's good to hear that. We all have self-admissions. I have mine. You know, it's part of being human.
Absolutely.
It's part of being human, and it's a part of learning. It's a part of learning who we are as a species. And what is our real purpose on this planet? What are we here to do? That's
a huge question, right? And it actually ties into the longevity thing. And if you don't know what you're here to do and you have no real reason of being here, like, do you really want to be here for 200 years? You know, I mean, that seems kind of silly. You know, if you're poisoning the planet, do you want to be here in 200 years? So I think these are the questions we have to ask ourselves about longevity, about life, about each day. You know, can you even live tomorrow, or is it always today? Right. So very philosophical stuff that we have to kind of bring back a little bit and start asking ourselves these questions, because planning for a 150-year life seems pretty stupid. And nobody we talk to, you know, the 105-year-old we talked to he wasn't trying to be 105. You know, he was living each day in a way that made sense to him. And so, you know, I think we just have to think about things a little bit more in those terms, about how I can live to my best life today, and what every little decision I make, being mindful of it, you know, not being perfect, but being mindful. And, you know, buying something in a plastic bag. Okay. You know, not the greatest decision, it's not the end of the world either. Right. So just these little things, you know, making small changes and just being more mindful. I think this is step one and it's such a powerful step, being mindful of our day, of our choices. And these choices include how we're thinking, how we're emoting, how we're communicating, you know, how we're going about every little process in our day. And to me, that's what equates to a long life, or a healthy life, or a good life. Because there's no guarantees on any of this stuff. You can be the best practice. You could have all the stuff figured out, Mike, and then you get hit by a bus tomorrow.
It's true, isn't it?
Good luck. You know, I don't care. I don't care what your lab work says. I don't care what your lab work says.
Game over. Right.
Exactly. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's all about enjoying this and just doing the best you can, and hopefully giving and sharing and just playing the best role you can. You know, again, I hate to get all soft and philosophical, but like, what else is there? You know,
what else is there? I mean, it's all or nothing in many ways. You know.
Yeah.
We have to show up. We have to be ourselves. We have to be real, and we have to appreciate what we have instead of striving for what we don't have. You know.
Yeah.
Make better of what we have. Use our minds.
And that's how we change the world. Honestly, that's how we change, you know, our communities, our inner worlds, our outer worlds, the environment, the societies. You know, it starts there. You know, looking at these big things outside of us and blaming government, blaming this. You know, looking at companies and blaming corporations. It's like, corporation doesn't have any money unless you give it to them. You know, I mean, these are the things that we have to bring it back to. So, you know, it's all about the self in a way. But I think it's flipping that on its head a little bit and thinking about the other, and it's the choices that you make in response. I think that's really how we have to look at this: is what am I doing to serve others? What am I doing to impact others? And starting there.
So the Human Longevity Project is officially going into hard launch mode on the 8th.
Yes. Yes, we'll be releasing episode 1 on May 8th. I think 5 p.m. Pacific is the time that we're releasing it, or maybe it's 5 p.m. Eastern. It might be 5 p.m. Eastern. But either way, if you sign up, we'll send you notifications on that. And we're releasing an episode each day. So episode 1 will be live for 24 hours. Episode 2 will follow it, and so on and so on. And it's free. You know, I mean, there's no risk. You just sign up and you watch, and you take what you can from it, and hopefully it's useful. And we'd love for as many people to share this. Obviously, we all talk about changing the world. We all talk about wanting this beautiful world, but if we're not willing to sort of do things about it, you know, and some of these things can simply be sharing a message. And this is where I think you and I have gotten to, you know, with the work we do, is how can I share more? How can I spread this to as many people? Because people need to hear this, and there's people out there that want to hear this, you know. And so sometimes we get self-absorbed and don't want to share because, you know, I can't be bothered, or somebody might not want to see this. But think about sharing something, and if one person sees it, you know, I mean, you're changing somebody. You know, if there's anything that's been more amazing to me, it's that the smallest things can make the biggest difference in somebody's life. And they come back to you and they say it, and I'm like, wow, that's what did it? You know, it was that. And
right.
It blows me away every time. And we think that things that we're doing are small, and they're not, you know, and that's the crazy thing. The smallest things we do can be so transformative for somebody else. And this is how the ripple effect, this is the butterfly effect. These things are described in physics and math. And I mean, this is big stuff, you know, the tipping point, you know, it's small changes can result in massive waves of transformation.
Well, by no means is the Human Longevity Project a small feat. It's a colossal feat, in my opinion, in all honesty. What you guys have done is just absolutely incredible. I am so honored to be a part of it, and you know, I'm so happy that you've gotten such a great response and you've had such a great turnout. And you know, I wish you all the best and success with this. I think that this is literally a film that certainly can change the course of life on this planet. I really do believe that. I believe that it's going to impact thousands and thousands of people, millions of people potentially.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I'm so honored to have been a part of it, and to you just to absolutely grilled me in the interview process. It was just such an incredible pleasure to have you interview me and make it all the way up to Santa Cruz to do it. And it's just been, the whole thing has been phenomenal. So thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you
all of it.
For continuing to teach me. And honestly, like the concepts would never have come to fruition if it weren't for people like you and many others that I've learned from, to be able to sort of coalesce this stuff in my mind and put the pieces together to even try to create something like this. So it's a pleasure to continue to learn from you and from many others that are sharing their wisdom. Again, it's the sharing thing. Had you not shared something at some point in your career, I would have never found out what you were doing and never, you know, so you see what I'm saying? Like, these things are just, they're big, you know, sharing this stuff is huge. So thank you so much for continuing to put yourself out there, taking big risks in exposing things that are in your head, because we often get criticized very easily for things these days. So it's not easy sometimes to be out there in the public sphere sharing these. You're very controversial in your opinions, and I love it, because you're changing perceptions in a lot of people, because there's a constant dogma out there that needs to be broken, and it's hard to speak up against it. And you're one of the guys that's doing that. So I thank you for speaking out against some of the bullshit that's out there.
Thank you. I'm aware of my controversy, and I'm going to keep going in that direction. So I'm not going to water it down. I never will.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Jason Prall, Human Longevity Project. We're going to throw a link up there in a few moments. Thank you so much for being here, Jason. It was an absolute pleasure having you. Thank you for taking the time of the day. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. Take care, everybody. We'll be in touch.
Take care.
Bye.